I'm Damien the DM from Adventures in Aurelia, a collaborative storytelling experience told through a game of Dungeons & Dragons, part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other epically geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Hey, I'm Jordan Bloom, and you're listening to Capes on the Couch.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
We are very excited to be back with a regular style episode, doing things a little back to normal, I suppose. Not that talking to Alan and Will isn't normal at this point. It seems to be a fairly recurring thing with them. They just won't leave us alone. No, I joke, I kid. But it's good to be back with a regular thematic character study episode. And since Captain America Brave New World is coming out this week, we are talking about General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. So welcome to issue 194 of Capes on the Couch. And let's jump right into the background. General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in The Incredible Hulk #1, May 1962. So Lieutenant General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, as he is introduced to us, is overseeing the Gamma Bomb project that ultimately leads to the creation of the Hulk, Bruce Banner. And you can go way back, very early on in our archives, and you can hear the episode that we did on the Hulk in conjunction with our friends over at Popcorn Psychology, because we were talking about the movie as well. So Thaddeus grew up in a military family and was focused on serving his country from a young age. He joined the Army Air Corps, later the Air Force, and worked his way up through the ranks. So when we meet General Ross, Bruce Banner's growing relationship with Ross's daughter Betty was a source of frustration and anger for him, as was the recurring nuisance of the Hulk. And Ross essentially made it his personal mission to find and destroy the Hulk. Because of that, several times he allied with villains to battle the Hulk, which ultimately led to his dismissal from the military. Betty and Bruce get engaged for the first time, but the leader turns Hulk savage and the wedding gets called off. And then Betty later marries Glenn Talbot. And Ross is satisfied that Banner will never be his son-in-law. Even though he does kind of respect Banner to some extent, he still doesn't want him in his family. When Talbot was captured by the Soviets in a rescue mission to save Ross, his apparent death fractured his relationship with Betty, as well as a demotion at work because of his inability to capture the Hulk. So then Betty divorced Talbot, who turns out to not, in fact, have been dead, because nobody dies for real in comics, at least name characters. Civilians, you're SOL. So Talbot and Betty get divorced, and she reveals that she still loves Bruce. So enraged by this, Ross allies with MODOK to have the Abomination kill Hulk, but Betty caught wind of the plan and accused her father of treason. He gets discharged from the Air Force and nearly commits suicide. He is at a very low point in his life.
So wait. Let's make this clear. So he was dismissed from the military, and then he gets demoted from a job about not being able to destroy the Hulk, and then he gets dismissed from the Air Force. How many opportunities does this guy need?
I have so many jokes there, but I'm going to leave them all alone. So Bruce and Betty get married. Ross shows up at the wedding with a gun to stop the ceremony. Rick Jones intervenes and is shot non-fatally. Everybody's favorite sidekick, or least favorite sidekick, depending on whom you ask, does manage to survive. So in a shield experiment, he merges with Zizax, a being of sentient electrical energy, but in a battle with a mutant, he expends his energy to save Betty and dies. His body then gets resurrected by the leader, and he rejoins the Air Force. Because again, more second chances. So after Betty is killed by the Abomination and Hulk gets shot off into space by the Illuminati, Ross sinks into an alcoholic depression. When Steve Rogers gets shot, he is visited by MODOK and the leader and offered a chance to gain Hulk-like powers. He then becomes Red Hulk, and one of his first acts is to kill the Abomination for murdering Betty, who, spoiler alert again, turns out to be very much not dead. She's in fact Red She-Hulk. We'll get into that if and when we ever get around to doing an episode on Betty. So Ross's identity as the Hulk is kept secret for over 2 years before being revealed during World War Hulks. because
I was going to say, that's not just canonically, that's actually how it was run. It was like, Red Hulk, who on earth is this? Because we figured, oh, we've had Gray Hulk. We've had plenty of different versions of Banner. Like, this has got to be another. And then there is a specific panel that I think many people recall where he points out, I'm not Bruce. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a whole thing where Marvel, to their credit, managed to keep it a secret for a while. There was a lot of speculation that it was, in fact, Ross. But one of the big, I guess, swerves is that Ross is known and very distinctly identified by his mustache. He has a very thick, bushy mustache. Red Hulk is devoid of facial hair. So when you're trying to figure out who that is, you go, well, he doesn't have a mustache, so it's not Ross. I don't know where the mustache goes. I don't know. I don't know why it disappears when he transforms. I know that as of recently, when he transforms, the stash stays. So now I don't know. It's hashtag
because comics.
There's your answer, folks. So he later joins the Avengers, where he befriends an LMD named Annie that helps give him a little bit of perspective and understanding about things. And it kind of softens some of the edges on the character and humanizes him a little bit. Then this is actually pretty cool. As part of a joint effort to defeat Blackheart, son of Mephisto, he temporarily bonds with both the Venom symbiote and the Spirit of Vengeance and becomes this Gestalt being known as the Circle of Four. So he's Red Hulk, Venom, and Ghost Rider all together. It's actually pretty badass. And much more recently, he gets depowered by Doc Green, a super intelligent version of the Hulk, though he does get it back. And now he's in a new series where he's battling Captain America, Sam Wilson, because synergy with the movies. You think?
Yeah, just a little bit.
So let's get into the issues then. The theme is, as Doc said, this could be a bit of a proverb, but a small river flowing long enough becomes a canyon. And we're going to get into how small things can have big and long-term effects. And the first issue that we're going to discuss is when tradition becomes a trap. And Ross is very much a man who likes patterns. He has a very linear way of thinking, and sometimes it works. A lot of times it does not.
Especially nowadays, I think everybody can agree that we want stability in our lives. And if you have consistency, it takes away the need of some of the mental energy you have to expend on a daily basis. We only have so much that we can do in a day. Some of that can even be taken before you exist in the world. If you're born, in this case, if you're born into a military family and you have the example that you can learn as a child of what a person is supposed to do, you may learn what other people do, but you know that you can follow this path and it's well laid. It has every step and instruction from day one, and you just follow the blueprint. As long as you follow the blueprint, you will have certain results within a narrow band. That really helps out because now you can just put all of your physical energy, your spiritual energy, everything into that pattern, and you get exactly what you expect. Most people would sign up for that. Maybe not most. I'd say a lot of people. I honestly don't know what the number would be. And that's all well and good. There's this little thing called life, though, that is incredibly random. And the fact that there are other things involved in society, you know, like other people, that can start to change the pattern up a little bit. And it starts looking more random on the edges at first, even if it's not directly with what you're dealing with. So with someone like Ross, it actually seems to manage pretty well into adulthood. And I think that's the trap that I've noticed. A lot of people, even if there's no major traumatic events that happen early in life, if there's the false expectation that everything will continue to be this way permanently for the rest of your life, the permanency fallacy is what some people have called it. when that kicks in, any deviation creates a lot of emotional discontent. And if you haven't had someone talk to you about it, or you haven't even thought about it for yourself, then you may start to act erratically, because the energy that's been stored up for a long time that never had to be used is now going to be used in a way that is pretty haphazard. You don't have a heuristic. You don't have a mental mindset and cognitive frame to put everything where it's supposed to go now. And so, yes, you're going to do the best you can. I acknowledge that. But wow, does it seem to sow some chaos pretty quickly. And that can be from something that's good, not just something that's bad, if it's just something you've never seen before. So someone like Thunderbolt, he's been getting opportunities in the military over and over and over again. And his nickname, I should say, is from the idea that when he plans, he strikes like a thunderbolt. He does everything exactly when it needs to happen, and with great precision and force until it doesn't. And many people don't know how to handle that, so they also will try and squeeze things into their own frame and don't understand why other people can't fit it. So it becomes an issue where, yes, there is a problem, but it can't possibly be me. And therefore, you just keep searching and searching and searching. And someday you notice, or maybe you don't, but someone else tells you, the only common denominator in all of this that stays the same is you. And you're always around for this particular problem. So draw your own conclusion, because I'm not going to do it for you. Because every time someone else draws a conclusion for someone, they don't get it. I'll leave it at that.
If you smell crap everywhere you walk, check underneath your shoe. I will say that it's one thing to want some stability and comfort and patterns, and for folks that have variant neurodivergencies, they need that. I can speak for myself when I say that I do appreciate some routines and consistencies on somewhat of a counterintuitive fashion, though. If it's too routine and too rote, then it becomes boring, or I need to rebel just to provide some hit of dopamine. It's the weirdest thing. I cannot stand being told what to do, but I also very much need structure and order. And I have spent 40 plus years of my life trying to reconcile the two to little avail. So I can understand to some extent where Ross is coming from on this, because he wants things in a particular fashion. And of course, it rarely works that way. But if it's too much of the same, then he doesn't know what to do with himself. Like when he drinks himself into a state after the Hulk is gone, because you got what you wanted. Hey, the Hulk is not a threat anymore. Well, unfortunately, also with that, he lost his daughter. So now what does he have? His tether to reality is gone, and he drifts. And so I think that's a good segue into the second issue, overprotective of his daughter. Just a bit. As you and I are both fathers of daughters, it's certainly one thing to want to protect our children and make sure that they are cared for and they are given the tools in life to take care of themselves, while understanding that not everything is going to necessarily go smoothly out there. Ross takes it, again, as he is wont to do, just a little bit too far.
So there have been so many different terms for how these parents act and all of that. And I don't mean to get into memes, but variations. You can have the whole hover parenting or helicopter parenting, always there, literally one step away to make sure, especially at the super young ages, that nothing ever happens. The child never gets hurt, never gets to experience anything that would potentially be short-term uncomfortable. I'm not even saying harmful, just uncomfortable. On the other extreme, but still similar, you can have the tiger mom or tiger dad. And what I mean by that is the person that makes sure that everything is so regimented that the child, once they, let's say, have an interest in something or more likely show a positive affinity and talent for something, that will be the only thing that they will ever have to focus on. And the parent will absolutely make sure that every free moment is scripted out as to what they need to do in order to get the best results. If you're talented in a sport, you are going to be on the travel team. You will also make sure that you're doing those routines more than any other player on the team. You may find a way to make yourself the coach of the team so that you can monitor the minutes. That's the other extreme. And sometimes you get a mix of those things. So I don't even need the comic allegory for this. That's something that people have seen, and that's something that many people may experience. And by the way, I'm not trying to shame anybody with this. If this is how you feel or how you decide to parent, if you have someone that needs that level of protection because there is something seriously wrong either with the environment or with previous trauma and it's fostering or whatever it is, I'm not saying that those things aren't potentially a good thing. And if you end up with someone that has a multi-million-dollar contract and has the type of thing where they're set for life because they learned great skills from you at a young age, more power to you. That's amazing. I'm not trying to say that these things can't work out, but what I am saying is at those extremes, those outliers don't usually result in that great a outcome. I hesitate to say it because I don't want to discourage people from excelling in things and doing great and making sure that major negative things don't happen to their child. That's definitely important. Absolutely important. Base needs always need to be met. Your child needs to be clothed, fed, have a roof over their head, and know that they have someone that they can consider to be a parental figure that they can both confide in and receive feedback from that may sometimes include consequences for their actions. That's great. Take any one of those sections and place them at their most wide boundaries, and you could see where it can become problematic. So with Thunderbolt and Betty, yeah, I mean, it's horrible that she ended up being exposed to all of the negative things that happened with all of this scientific research. It is incredibly unfortunate that of all the people that she hangs around with, it is a group of people that are always going to be in danger. But that's true for many people. If you are in relationships where they're doing a dangerous job, then yes, there are going to be potential negative outcomes for that. And for whatever reason, whether it's cultural, for some cultures, it's simply, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? You could be anything you want as long as it's a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, You can marry whoever you want as long as they are our same background, nationality, race, ethnicity, religion. Now I might be hitting a little too hard, but it's the truth. But in any case, it can be incredibly difficult. And I know, Anthony, you've said this many times. If you don't take into account the child that's in front of you, then using a one-size-fits-all, covering them in bubble tape and saran wrap and all these other things while, indoctrinating them with exactly one way to live their life because that's what you did, to go back to our first issue, don't be surprised if things don't exactly go the way that you expected them to.
Yeah. Yep. I could not agree more. You have to do what's right for the child that you have. I will say this, if you truly have unconditional love for your child, and I'm not trying to turn this into a no true Scotsman fallacy that anybody who does that wavers outside of this viewpoint doesn't care about their child. My point is just that I feel very strongly about this, that if you truly love and accept your child for who they are, and that involves knowing them on a regular basis and constantly, engaging with them and being present and watching them grow and learn, then you have to do what's right for them in that moment. And you certainly have to keep an eye to some extent towards the future, but you also can't parent from a place of fear that, oh, if I don't do it this way now, it's going to ruin them later on down the line. And again, to your point about indoctrination and this very myopic viewpoint of things. I think we're seeing that just play out so much in real life these days, not to get too into real world scenarios, but you have just a litany of people that are cutting ties with family members because of politics or religion or things where the children feel, you know what? I understand that you birthed me and I am grateful that you brought me into this world, but I have all of these issues with how you are now. And if you can't accept and respect me for the person that I am today, or my children, your grandchildren, then I want nothing to do with you. Or people are cutting out siblings, or they're cutting out aunts and uncles. They are, because unfortunately we're at a point now in society where things have gotten so entrenched with people's beliefs, and we've certainly seen things being played out on a federal level where ramifications of legislation and political decisions have real effects. Again, this isn't a political themed show, but the effects that things are having on families these days is all too real. And I've spoken to numerous people who've said that they have had to cut ties or go very, very limited contact with family members over politics. I myself have severed ties with not family members, but people that I knew, just associates, friends-ish, because I'm like, you know what? I can't deal with this anymore. You're way too entrenched in a mindset and a lifestyle that I just can't co-sign anymore. And I don't want anything to do with it. So I know that it went off on a little bit of a tangent.
Well,
but
I will gladly continue with that. Not in the way that you think, though. It goes back to the theme, because there's nothing wrong with a very wide range. And for some of you listening, you'd be surprised as to what I consider to be a wide range with regards to societal beliefs, motivations, et cetera, et cetera. But what ends up happening is people will end up digging that trench, like you said, so much so that not only have they created their own echo chamber that is incredibly deep, they forgot to even look on the other side, and the other person has done the same thing. So now we're not talking about the fact that I made decisions for myself that have created this divide. It's that every individual person has dug their own hole, and they are now so isolated that they can't figure out how to represent themselves without like blasting their own words, in their own skulls. And it just creates this feedback loop of pain. And we're all trying to crawl out of it, and we're scared. We're scared to actually say to a person, can we talk about this and disagree and recognize that we still both have value in what we're saying? And that's sad to see. And so from that perspective, especially within the family mold, because forget, I know some people may feel differently about this. Forget the national level, forget the global level, forget the state level. Okay. Just the people you care about around you. Just find a way to make that single point of connection that is not related to the things that divide you. If you can find, when I talk to patients, I call it my hook. This isn't a psychological term. I simply try and find something that the person enjoys that either I know about or I can at least demonstrate that I'm interested in learning. And once you do that, it's amazing how all the other stuff just falls away, because ultimately it doesn't mean as much as you think it does. And if someone like Thunderbolt had actually taken time to discover what it is that his daughter enjoys outside of himself, maybe he wouldn't have been so hurt by what happens with someone like Hulk. Maybe he wouldn't feel so attacked when she says, I'm not the person that you think I am. And maybe, just maybe, he doesn't feel like he has to create a monster of himself just to deal with what she's going through and vice versa, where she feels like just to survive, she had to become a monster that is, when they really start interacting, not that far off from him.
Yeah, very valid point. Very true. So speaking of the monster stuff, perfect segue into the third issue. Oh yeah, the Hulk stuff. This is very much a case of becoming the thing that you hate.
I mean, this is Ahab, man. This is nothing new. You know, poets have been writing about this since, I don't know, since humanity itself could articulate anything. It goes right back to that very first thing, though. Just, there are things you know and then things you don't know. And I think part of why this becomes such an obsession for Lieutenant General Ross is that when Hulk first really shows up in the way that we know Hulk does, it just is so foreign to him. The concept of all of it, uncontrolled emotions, complete chaos, impulsivity, and acting on it, because everyone has impulses, but to actually go through with what the impulse is, to just be able to leap away from consequence. Like Hulk does damage and then that's it. Gone to the next thing until Banner, calms down and goes unconscious or whatever. That's got to be disturbing for anyone. That's not just Thunderbolt. The idea that this thing could throw a tantrum, do damage, and then it's like, that's it? Really? So I'm not saying I don't understand it. I can comprehend why this is such a problem. But to exclude everything else in your life for the sake of this goal, that's incredibly dangerous. And then not even understanding why your perspective may impact multiple people around you, why your decisions become Machiavellian. The idea that the end justifies the means. How much damage are you willing to do to say that you stuck on task? How many people do you hurt? How many other possibilities do you ignore because you had to do things your way? I don't know what the proper number is, but I don't think the idea is have one purpose, have zero distractions, have no one else that matters nearly as much in life, even the person that you were trying to protect, to go back to issue 2. Do all of that to if once again we use that character wheel of different areas of your life and to basically be a needle point, that, oh my goodness, that doesn't sound like it's going to end well. And it also means, ironically, that many people, at least from what I've noticed, they end up being manipulated a lot because they can't see why other people's goals are being met, despite the fact that ultimately they may not be closer to their own. As long as someone can feed the proper manipulative line and say, you want the Hulk? Oh, I can get you closer to the Hulk. All you have to insert whatever it is. All you have to do is give us further resources, even though I'm a villain. Make sure you subject yourself to things, even though it may kill you. Make sure you put yourself in dangerous situations. Sacrifice the people around you, even though you in theory care about them. So that's a huge risk in and of itself, let alone the idea that at some point, the old trope, if you can't beat them, join them. It's like, it's more like if you can't understand them, then maybe you need to do something to try and be understood.
Yep. I don't even have anything else to add to that. So we're just going to take a quick break, plug some shows. When we get back, we'll get into treatment. Stick around.
Hey there, I'm Chris from the Geek Peak podcast, here with my 2 co-hosts, Trent.
What up?
And Brandon.
Yo.
Here at the Geek Peak, we strive to provide you the best content from all across the pop culture multiverse.
Think of us as your content concierge, seeking out all the best movies, TV, games, and music to save your valuable time.
We have a different adult beverage every week, and we like to keep things light and fresh, so come hang out with us.
So check us out on all your favorite podcasting platforms. That's Geek Peak.
Like a mountain!
And check out our site at geekpeakpod.com.
Have you ever been reading through a stack of comics and thought, maybe I should see what this Arkham Asylum game is all about? Or been playing Marvel vs. Capcom and felt like you were at a real disadvantage since you didn't know who half the characters were? Well, Play Comics is the show for you. I'm Chris, and each episode we take a look at video games based on comic properties and how well they stick to that source material. So whether you know the comics and want to know how all these games work, or you know the games and want to find out where all this craziness came from, go check out Play Comics at playcomics.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
And we're back. So now getting into treatment. Starting as we always do with in-universe treatment, what would you say to General Ross to get him to calm down?
Okay, people. That was a real inside joke that I'm not even going to explain. But seriously, he needs to chill. And the type of abilities that he got, it's a mix of things. He's able to absorb a lot of energy, and it's not just gamma radiation. He deals with the power cosmic early on. Like he has like the all-out blitz of why he's a badass. So my point is, let's see what we do to help him chill. If there's a way to get him into an environment that will be incredibly cold, maybe not absolute zero, but as close as you can get to it, rather than dealing with the explosive type of reactions that we're used to, we may have to go more solar in terms of fusion rather than fission. So, any combination of those things, in addition to, I don't know, like keeping him in an incredibly isolated, out in space, no one around for a little bit kind of thing. I don't know how we do all of this, but we got to get him away from a lot of people so that he can deal with himself. We have to get it so that it is almost like away from stars, but still able to produce some sort of reaction that'll keep him just alive enough, and just have him create some sort of mantra for himself just to chill, man. Chill.
Let's just hope he doesn't go full blackout. Or someone's going to lower the casket down. We're talking Busta Rhymes and Eminem, folks, if you didn't get it. Great song. Great song. Doc and I will be doing it at karaoke at some point in the not too distant future. And I'll be doing Busta. No, just
oh my Lord.
No, that is one way for me to easily get my ass kicked. So out of universe, we obviously strip away the Hulk stuff, but I think General Ross as a character is very relatable and very realistic.
I could think of course, not violating HIPAA. I could think of any number of patients who have some sort of service background. You can expand that way beyond military, who also come from a family of tradition of whether it's that employment or at least that range of employment with the expectation that their children do that. Some of them branch out into other things, or they have a personality, or they're exhibiting behaviors that that person doesn't approve of. They're having difficulty dealing with that. And then in the meantime, they're really trying to get over the hump, whether it's with their occupation or maybe they have a hobby and they're stuck on something, whatever it is. All of these things leading to a lot of emotional angst and probably some significant conversations that had some traumatic backlash, either towards them directly or as a result towards someone they love. So in all of those circumstances, yes, you have to parse out where they are, but also where they're willing to go. Because I need to know the range that this person already has. For some people, they already are struggling with the idea that the world is not the way that I thought it was going to be. So they want a new path. But of all the questions they could be asking, it can simply be, how do I get back on the original path that I was looking for? If that's the case, I may not be able to directly help because I'm not their person. I'm not in their field, so I may not understand and they may not relate to me as a mental health provider. On the other hand, maybe they've branched out and they're saying, I think I'm on a new path. How do I match this as close as I can to their previous path? And once again, as long as I can relate to it, I can say, hey, I see the similarities here, but remember what happened with your last path. Is that going to happen again? And I know some of you are tired of me saying this. History doesn't repeat. but it certainly rhymes. So if you want to continue with that song sheet, good for you, as long as you're willing to accept that the range of consequences may very well be similar. Or, and yes, I'm showing my bias with this, or if you're willing to embrace the idea that the reality of life is not a singular path, but rather a whole bunch of interconnected, unknown, here's the dangerous part, and unknowable alternatives and consequences, then, ironically, you can create the most unique path that has never been walked before. You can actually start to consider what life looks like when things don't happen exactly the way you expect. It can be creativity. It can be inspirational. It can be motivational, rather than the pure chaos that throws everything away impulsively with lots of uncontrolled rage or depression and sadness and self-harm or violence and aggression towards others. Because really, that's the thing that's been underlying all of this that I didn't want to just automatically say, because everyone at a base level understands why those final consequences are bad. But the thing that is missing is that part in the middle where everything that was leading up to that was its own event. And if any one of those events is shifted, then you may not get that negative outcome. So my point is not to say I have this new path and blueprint that you need to follow exactly to get where you're going. My point is I'm a compass. I can start pointing you in the right direction, and now you get to design your own map. That's what this type of therapy is about.
Wow. Okay. I really like that. And again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier, where for somebody like me, I need direction, but I also blanch against people that try to dictate everything with specificity. So if you can give me guidance and say, go in this direction, but make it your own, that, again, I'm just speaking for me, but I'm sure this probably resonates with a lot of people. That works better than either being left entirely to my own devices or laying everything out with such clinical definition of, okay, do this, then this, then this, then this, then this, because then it becomes boring, uninspiring, becomes a thing like brushing my teeth. Like, I know I have to do it and I do it, but okay, it just, whatever. It's a thing that I do. I don't want my life to be like brushing my teeth.
Yeah. And that's the part. My main job, like my day-to-day job, actually deals with that. It deals with the true basics of things, because people are in crisis, either are danger to themselves, others, or property. And danger to self can either be suicidal or can't take care of themselves. Danger to others kind of speaks for itself, either making threats or actively have physically acted upon it. My point is, that actually is the level where you do have it much more manualized, like really bare bones. Like, yes, my goal is so that you don't hurt yourself, hurt anyone, or do anything of the sort. I want you to be able to do the basics like brushing your teeth, get up out of bed, change your clothes, all of that. Do those things first. Ironically, it's kind of the flip of what we've been talking about. A lot of the patients I see at that level are so ticked off because their point is, I want to live my life. I want to do all this other stuff. It's like, well, wait. Get back to the basics first. Do that. Show that you can do that. Then we can expand it. So I want to make it clear. I'm not naive to the idea that, yes, there is a very structured and manualized way to do things to start. That is true. That has been true just for the sake of survival. But once you get past that point, that's what I'm getting at. People think that it extends indefinitely. And my point is it doesn't. It truly doesn't. And if you're not aware of that, then a lot of people get lost. And actually, that's the highest risk factor for when a person leaves the hospital, because they don't feel they got that structure initially. And then once that's gone, it's like, oh, great, now what? And they think that's the way life is going to be forever. Some people kind of gravitate to it automatically. Other people rebel. But either way, the point is, it's not going to be that way. There is going to be a lot of flexibility, a lot of changes. And it doesn't matter if I say it or not, because reality is going to kick in no matter what.
Oh, it definitely will. It definitely will. So let's see what happens then when reality kicks in with General Ross when he gets on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, General Ross. I'm Dr. Issues.
Doctor, with all due respect, let's set the record straight. I didn't come here for treatment. I came here for a clean bill of health. I've been involved in enough government missions, secret protocols, and superpowered expeditions that I should be the last one to hide from any flaws. I know I'm not perfect, but I don't need to be. And that was before I learned about getting red in the face.
Well, that's a hot start, General.
I don't do jokes if you don't mind. There's serious matters at hand.
But I'll keep that in mind. Sheesh. There are always serious matters at hand. That's how the world works. That doesn't mean they all have to involve you.
Oh, agreed. I pick my spots, but those are enormous spots. I know my enemy better than they know themselves. That's what's lacking in battles nowadays. The foe has no concept of planning. So many people think being random makes you dangerous. It just makes you a fool.
Well, not to sound condescending, but I doubt all of your plans go the way you want them to.
No, a plan is useless. Planning is indispensable. Do you know who said that?
Good one, Dwight Eisenhower. So, by that nature, you enjoy the process necessary to reach goals and not just the goal itself.
If I didn't, then I would have stopped existing a long time ago. I think people get that wrong about me. They think I'm just some madman that wants to destroy the Hulk at all costs.
And that was wrong. How?
I was never a madman. I've been calculating the whole way through.
The heat thing says otherwise.
Emotion in battle, Doctor. It's something you can't wrap your head around. Oh, yeah, I get the rage, but in the fog of war, that could be the guide to see you through. No hippie woo-woo love fest is going to save you when bullets are zipping past your skull and bombs are dropping all around you, and the only time you bring in God is to say, thank God it's over, and you've won.
You present more demure than I expected.
You sound like one of those Gen Z types when you say that. You're a grown man. Act like it.
So no social media memes. Understood, sir? But are you really past everything that's listed in your file? I've been reading a lot. Banner, Betty, the Intelligentsia, the Avengers. I mean, it says here your own likeness was killed. None of that sounds traumatic to you?
Of course it does. So what? We all have trauma. Living is trauma. I used to let it eat at me, just shove it down my own throat and let it come out when the time is right. But with what I have now, there's no secrets. It's on my skin, it's in my veins, and radiating through the air. I finally found a way to have nothing to hide. My choices, my fights, my consequences. Got anything to add to that?
So far, you're hitting the same note. So let me kind of broaden it a bit. What brings you enjoyment? Or how about sadness? Do you have any fears left?
Son, you're breaking the cardinal rule. You're supposed to ask one question at a time. I'm sad that too many people think too small for their entire lives. I find joy in being one of the few living creatures to destroy multiple so-called badasses because I can adjust tactically and not be held down by magical thinking. I fear that anything less than a perfect rating in this assessment will leave me with a permanent mark that will have me use your office as a rage room.
Didn't you shoot someone at your daughter's
rage room?
You don't have to be so pushy about it.
So you're just going to slap the PTSD label on me like everyone else?
Well, it's very early on, and yeah, from one session, I wouldn't do that. But I got to give some guidance, so let's go outside the box. Oh, I got it. I'm going to say IGED.
What the hell is that?
Intermittent gamma explosive disorder.
Doc Samson was right about you. Longtime fans may have picked up on that little reference / Easter egg at the end there with Doc Samson was right. As we've said a couple of times on the show, Doc Samson was right was originally one of the proposed names for this show way back, almost 7 years now that we've been doing it. So when we were writing and Doc said, well, I have an opportunity to bring that up and just squeeze that in there. We've made reference to that a couple of times over the years. So that's a fun one. So recommended reading is World War Hulks, and also go out and pick up the new Red Hulk #1 that is coming out. It's coming out at some point in February. I don't have the exact date in front of me. Benjamin Percy and Jeff Shaw. And it's going to be a tie-in series to the One World Under Doom event that is happening in Marvel Comics, which I'm very much looking forward to. Big Fantastic Four fan, as I've said many times on the show. And speaking of that, and I'll get just a little quick plug for some of the social media stuff. If you go on our Instagram or Facebook or TikTok pages, you'll see I posted a video recently because the trailer for the new Fantastic Four movie dropped. And I basically said in there, I love the aesthetic. I love the retro futuristic mystique thing that they have going on. I'm not entirely enamored with Ben's voice. And so I actually posted a video on TikTok and Instagram /Facebook about that. And I got some decent feedback. And I even said in the video, I'm willing to be proven wrong. I'm willing to see the whole film and judge it as it stands. This is just more of like a, first blush, first reaction kind of thing. But in any case, this Red Hulk miniseries is going to tie into the Doctor Doom-led event, because in Marvel Comics, Doctor Doom is now the Sorcerer Supreme, and he's been holed up in Latveria for a couple of months, and he is now ready to reemerge on the world stage with all of his new godlike abilities. And I'm really enjoying the Fantastic Four run. Ryan North has been doing an incredible job with it. Every month I pick it up, and it's always just a great story, and the artwork is top notch. This is rapidly becoming one of my favorite Fantastic Four runs of all time. I think this is right up there with, in terms of consistency and quality, obviously not longevity of the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby run, but definitely in terms of the understanding of the dynamic and the characters. Ryan North, month in, month out, is just nailing it. And so a Doom-centered event, I'm here for it. I'm ready. So if you're not reading the Fantastic Four, go out and pick it up and get caught up before the One World Under Doom story. So next episodes, we've got the panel that we did at DerpaCon last year for Discord from My Little Pony, and then the debut of our new series, Colleagues on the Couch, that will be debuting, and then Shadow Man, selected by one of our former present level patrons. We've got a couple others that we're working on and getting those together. As I said, you can find us on last episode. We said you basically find us on most of the big social media platforms. I don't really want to name names at this point as to where we are or where we are not, but obviously we're still on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at Capes on the Couch. So if you're on a social media platform, just look for us there and give us a follow, give us a like, leave us a review if you can. And if you really like what you hear and you want to subscribe to our Patreon, we're going to be seeing the new Captain America movie at some point soon. And when Doc and I do see it, when we can manage to work it into our schedules, we will be releasing kind of like a little reaction mini episode exclusively for Patreon. So if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and click the link in the show notes and join, and you can unlock some additional content, early access, uncensored material, et cetera, et cetera. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in the swing of things in light of all the stuff that I've got going on. Personally, it's nice to put my head down for an hour or so and just tune everything else out, because I can tell you that the way things have been going lately, sometimes I can absolutely empathize with General Ross and the desire to just Hulk out and just smash things. Doesn't really work that well in reality. But
no.
On that note, before we head out, Doc, you want anything? You got anything you want to add?
I don't have any quips or anything like that. I just want to kind of echo part of what you're saying. One of the biggest things that we found out about General Ross when he became Red Hulk is that at some point, even though you just want to be a light in the darkness, if you truly let your rage go too far, it simply will be the flame that burns out.
True story. For Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.